Halfway through the decade, folks. You feel old yet? I sure as hell do. Anyway, another year, another obligatory yet oh so fun to create top 10 list, and good news about 2025, it slapped. It slapped so unbelievably hard. Remember when we thought 2023 was so stacked that it would be many years for another year to even come close to that quality? Yeah, try 1 year, because after 2024 came and gave us an ever so slightly needed break, 2025 came and slapped that doubt right out of us by giving us one of the best years to bless us gamers. And funny enough, while this year certainly had some solid AAA titles for sure, this is the year that is surely going to go down as the year of the indie and the AA. For it's those two games that truly decimated this entire year by putting out several titles with a quarter of the budget and half of the staff. But still, with all that said, good games from all studios, from all sizes, were truly running rampant from this year. So, enough chit-chat, let's just hop right in and start counting down my personal top 10 games of 2025, in my opinion. So just making it on my list is a game that admittedly I was hoping for more, I won't lie, especially in the combat department. But it still doesn't change the fact that just as a well-made, gorgeous, and genuinely thought-provoking horror game, Silent Hill F is still pretty great. Not without its faults, it does have issues. I've made my extreme dislike for the combat in the game very clear. However, Silent Hill F, if just purely as a horror game, I walked away from this more than satisfied because most everything I want from my horror games is here. The presentation, wonderful, with gorgeous and haunting visuals paired with top-notch sound design. The puzzles, while a little complicated, are still very fun, layered, and certainly make you feel pretty damn smart and euphoric having finished them. And then you got the story, telling a dark, tragic, and wonderfully disturbing tale of coming of age, packed with absolutely stellar voice acting, particularly in the Japanese dub, especially from the Japanese voice actress for Hinako Kanitsukato, again, I hope I said that right, who is truly acting her ass off. All that to say, Silent Hill F has its problems, sure, and they are noticeable, yes, but when Silent Hill F is at its best, it is some of the best horror content you'll find in this year, hands down. I can understand if this game isn't for everyone, but between its puzzles, story, and gorgeous presentation, it was definitely a game for me. If I were to give an award for the single most shafted game of 2025, it would easily go to The Altars, a game that deserves so much better than it got. It's a game that manages to balance a stressful management sim, but with a unique twist with the people that you're managing being your own clones made to replace your dead crew. And that alone adds such a unique and weird atmosphere that balances several different tones from disturbing to funny to heartfelt. The scenario also leads to easily some of the best writing of this year, with all of the Yons having such great dialogue as they bounce back and forth amongst each other. From easily one of the best performances of this year, from Jan Dolsky himself playing 11, 13 unique versions of himself, and he plays them all so convincingly. It's honestly very impressive. This one is kind of short. There's not much to say on this one except it's a weird game that manages to balance a stressful management sim with weird existential sci-fi clone story with excellent writing and a great lead performance. It may not be the most popular, but I still stand by that it is one of the best of this year. So it's not very often I feel almost exactly the same for the first game as I do for the second game. But Ghost of Yotei is one of those rare examples, and how did I feel for both? I don't like it as much as everyone else, but it's still really good. Similar to Tsushima, the best part of Yotei is simply exploring. Galloping through this colorful and gorgeous land of Yotei was always a constant highlight, and as you explore the world, you find that it is just packed with things to do and collect, all with a certain level of freedom that I don't even think Tsushima offered, that made it so that in Yotei I was almost constantly sidetracked with side quests, trainings, and mini games. But unlike other games of this structure, the lack of markers and UI really gives it that oh so satisfying feeling of exploration and discovery, and it's a feeling that is being sprung on you in this game almost constantly as you find another yellow bird to lead you to a hidden area or a Saito encampment to clear using the very much improved stealth and combat, which both feel great, by the way. And then you have the story that, yeah, if I'm being honest, is really my least favorite part of the game, and the only part of the first game I feel as just an ever so slight downgrade. With that said, it is still filled with pretty damn good moments, particularly the last third of the game that really had the best story moments by far. So yeah, Ghost of Yotei has its problems and aspects I definitely didn't love, but they never got in the way of me appreciating the many highs that this game has to offer. Yotei left me with a similar feeling to how I felt in the first game, which in this case can still be summed up as not amazing, but still very, very good. And definitely a game that, while I don't see myself coming back to anytime soon, is still a game that I am happy to have played. As a lover of Telltale games and episodic games in general, words can't describe the immense enjoyment I got from Dispatch. Now look, the whole argument of this being not much of a game, I get it. And let's start with this. Yes, there is very little game in this game, though admittedly, the RTS gameplay moments are not too bad. But if you disagree that this really counts as a full-scale game, then fair enough. I disagree, but fair enough. If you want games with a bunch of gameplay, blocking, melee, etc., this isn't the game to play. It's just not. But you know what? I don't care, because this is exactly the game that not only I wanted, it's the game I desperately wanted. Dispatch just scratches the itch that I have had since the quality days of Telltale, and that was a legitimately well-written, choose-your-own adventure game, and everything that you would want from a game like that is here. The dialogue is incredible, bouncing a wonderful tone of being genuinely hysterical, but also really heartfelt and not afraid to get mature and real. The characters are great. These are some of the most well-written, entertaining characters we've had all year, with, in my opinion, one of the best characters and one of the best performances of this year from Aaron Paul as Robert Robertson. The game looks great. The animations are crisp and detailed. The colors are bright and inviting. The action scenes look great. And wrap that all up with the typical engaging choice and consequences that you would expect from a Telltale game, and you get an 8 to 10 hour narrative gem that can be perfectly described with just one word: entertaining. It's just so goddamn entertaining. And for someone like me who just absolutely adores these type of games, I can confidently say that this is the best that we've had in years. And if Telltale Games isn't gonna give us the goods anytime soon, at least we can say that we have Adhoc, a game studio that is clearly more than capable of carrying the torch. Haze Light Studios is officially 3 for 3, because my frickin' word is Split Fiction frickin' amazing. Now, this was an incredibly stacked year, so I have to say, I didn't quite enjoy this game as much as It Takes Two. That doesn't change the fact that it's still pretty frickin' incredible. This is still hands down one of the single most creative games I've ever seen. It never ceases to amaze me how in every level of this almost 12 to 15 hour game, not only are we introduced to a breathtaking and gorgeous world intrinsically created around the idea of multiplayer, but then inside of said world, we are given a fun, surprisingly well-playing gimmick to goof around with, and at the end of that level, it's just tossed aside in favor for the next super fun and super creative, brand spanking new world, gameplay mechanic, or idea in general. Split Fiction is just an onslaught of ingenious insanity and creativity that is really something that you need to see to believe. With, in my humble opinion, the single most technically impressive and crazy finale I've seen in a video game all year. And yet with all that creativity, the real standout of Split Fiction is just the multiplayer. I would not have enjoyed this game nearly as much if it wasn't spent with the companionship of my best friend. Playing this game with my friend, getting used to every new idea, and learning to communicate sometimes without even saying a word is really where the true joy of Split Fiction comes from. Not much else to say except it's a well-playing, endlessly creative, and ridiculously charming multiplayer adventure that if It Takes Two wasn't proof enough for you, then let Split Fiction be undeniable proof that Hazelight Studios is one of the best gaming companies in the industry right now, especially if they continue to put out creative gems like this. "2025 will go down as the year I finally understood the appeal of Hideo Kojima. Playing Death Stranding for the first time was a turning point, a game that despite its many flaws was a chill, gorgeous, and completely batshit insane experience. And most importantly, it left me genuinely excited to see how its sequel would follow that up. And the answer? Death Stranding 2 on the Beach takes what worked from the first game and simply adds more ways to traverse its stunning, detailed environments, more ways to approach its deliveries, more systems that make the overall experience just more pleasant, more fun, including a music player you can use at any time. Absolute best feature of the game. More ways to engage in combat with several new guns and weapons to use, which all feel very good. And of course, doubling down on what made the first game's story so interesting. Again, it's far from flawless. The dialogue can be cringy, and that makes it so that not every moment lands, but you can definitely see the improvements here. It has noticeably stronger voice acting, better pacing, and just as many, if not more, severely heartbreaking moments. The story of Death Stranding 2 on the Beach is truly something you got to experience. It is a story that touches on all the aspects. It is a story packed with twists. It's a story that can be funny. It's a story that can leave you just wondering what the fuck. And it's also a story that can get severely heartbreaking and dark, all building toward an insane but truly epic finale that is easily one of the most memorable moments I've experienced all year, and a moment I will never forget. But the way I feel about the story of Death Stranding 2 is truly how I feel for the game as a whole, in that it is a game that is an experience. It is a game that is packed with low moments. I won't refute that. But damn it, when you get to the highs of this game, not only are the highs of this game something special, they are some of the best moments you will experience all year. And those moments can have emotional range that go from laughter to heartbreak to genuine confusion and weirdness. Death Stranding 2 is weird as hell, but it's unapologetic for it, and you just can't help but admire that. Death Stranding 2 is far from the best game I played from 2025, but it is certainly an experience and a game that I will not be forgetting anytime soon. Every so often, we get a game that feels truly flawless. No notes, no compromises, just a perfectly realized experience. Last year, I would have argued that that game was Astrobot, and this year, I would say that game is Hades 2. And what makes Hades 2 especially wonderful and remarkable is that the original Hades, which is one of my favorite games by the way, was already damn near perfect. It's one of my favorite games of all time for a reason, and I genuinely didn't think it was possible to improve on something that polished, but somehow Hades 2 proves me wrong. It takes everything that worked in Hades and expands on it in meaningful ways. The combat offers more variety with new weapons and magic abilities, while also feeling faster, smoother, and more fluid than before. The art direction and music are just as outstanding. Character art, environments, and backgrounds are more detailed and vibrant than ever, paired with another goated soundtrack by my man Darren Korb that adds even more range and personality. I mean, my god, Hades 2 has got to be the second best soundtrack of this year. And then you have the writing, the voice acting, and storytelling returns stronger than ever most of the time. I will admit, if there's one problem with Hades 2, it's that the ending is not the best. But even still, the voice acting and storytelling is stronger than ever here, supported by a larger cast of incredibly well-written characters and an insane amount of dialogue for some situations that you probably never even thought of. It feels almost endless, with unique lines appearing in places you'd never even think to look. And this just doubles down again on what makes the original Hades so damn great. It is that level of detail, that care, that attention, that of all the games I've played this year, I truly don't think it gets better than Hades 2. I'm not saying that Hades 2 is necessarily the most original game, but if we're talking about the single most flawless running, looking, fully realized game of 2025, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better game than Hades 2. Hades 2 is simply a game where every part of its creation, from its writing to its visuals to its combat to its music, all of it is given 120%. And most importantly, every single section of it not only succeeds but exceeds to damn near perfection. I think a game like Hades could become even more perfect than it already was, but Supergiant Games once again proved me wrong by creating Hades 2, one of the very few games out there I would ever dare to call absolutely perfect. Nope, I still don't believe it. I genuinely can't believe I'm saying that Hollow Knight Silksong is finally out. Even harder to believe is that it somehow managed to pull off the near impossible task of living up to 7 years of hype while also improving on what's already considered one of the greatest Metroidvanias ever made. And yet Silksong does exactly that. It was absolutely worth the wait. The biggest distinguishing factor this time around is the speed. Hornet's agility makes both combat and platforming feel significantly faster, and that alone goes a long way in making the game feel familiar yet entirely new. Everything feels more methodical, tougher, and more engaging, but also far more satisfying, especially when you start chaining actions together in quick succession. It really helps to get you in a specific flow state in both platforming and combat that really helps to make partaking in either really freaking great and euphoric and just plain fun. And that's important because thankfully the game feels incredible to play because exploring its world is just as rewarding. It's packed with secrets, collectibles, and moments of discovery that constantly pull you forward. It's a game that when you're not doing platforming and combat is a game that is still going to keep you hooked because of just how much stuff there is to find in its gorgeous world. And exploring that world is only possible because the presentation is as stellar as it is, with improved art direction, richer backgrounds, and yet another standout soundtrack from Christopher Larkin and makes the world even more alive than it already is. You combine all that with an engaging narrative and a cast of likable characters, and you get a sequel that does the impossible and lives up to the insane levels of hype put on it. I truly never would have guessed that Silksong would have released this year, but here we are, and I have never been happier to say that it was really, truly worth the long wait. Now let's just hope we don't have to wait as long for Hollow Knight 3. The open world RPG is arguably one of, if not my absolute favorite genre of game for me. I love the idea of picking a direction in a massive, gorgeous world and just getting lost in the almost insane amount of possibilities. And I especially love a reactive world that actually changes based on how you live or survive in said world. And by my salt, I truly don't think I've seen a better modern day example of this than in Kingdom Come Deliverance II. The world that Warhorse Studios has achieved here is nothing short of industry pushing. I mean, this is an open world that every other future open world going forward should be taking notes on. The world of Kingdom Come Deliverance II is one of the most deep, most immersive, most realistic gaming worlds I've experienced since RDR2 or Cyberpunk. It's a world where inhabitants will actively react to how you dress, look, and even smell. It's a game where you really need to take eating, drinking, sleeping into account, or you'll lose very important stats in game. It's packed with many random events, from secrets to hidden enemy camps, and it's filled to the gills with memorable, layered side quests that not only expand the world, but also develop the characters, with some of these characters having stories that are equally engaging, if not even more engaging, than the main narrative itself. It's a dense world that's always rewarding exploration. It's a world that won't hold your hand and will absolutely test you, especially in the opening hours. Those opening hours are tough. But as you exist in this world, explore it and master your skills, it's a world that improves with you no matter where you go. But crazy still, KCD2 offers even more than one of the best open worlds ever. The combat is really good, with more weapons and better controls than the first game. The visuals are incredible and really help to sell the world of Bohemia, from soft forests to lush fields to bustling city streets. And of course, the story, a legitimately well-told epic that nicely wraps up the journey of the phenomenally voice-acted Henry of Skalitz, which is supported by an array of likable side characters who are just as well written as he is, if not more. It's just been so long since an open world game has gotten me this excited and this utterly locked in, as if I was actually living in the world myself. But hats off to the boys at Warhorse, man, because they managed to do what many other open world RPGs are attempting to do, and they did it in this masterpiece. It's not only one of the best games of this year, I believe it's one of the best open world RPGs, and definitely one of my new favorites, period. This is truly a 1 versus 1 type thing. Even as I'm writing this, I'm still going back and forth on which one is my game of the year. But right now, in present time, I've got to go with this one. But first honorable mentions, Ninja Gaiden 4. Flawed beyond belief, but thanks to absolutely badass and quick action combat, it's still a damn good time. Blueprints, an impressive melding of genres. Blueprints mixes puzzle game with engaging roguelite to create a wonderful indie game I don't think we've ever seen before. Shinobi Art of Vengeance. Beautiful 2D art and combat makes Shinobi not anything new, but certainly something that was better than I was expecting. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. The other 2D ninja game sports tougher combat and a more unique 2D pixel art style, which actually does help to give it a much more unique and just as fun identity. Monster Hunter Wilds. Issues that folk have with this game aside, I still had a blast exploring a beautifully dynamic world, and of course, slaying incredibly designed and badass monsters. Battlefield 6. A military shooter is not normally the go-to genre for me, but thanks to crazy destructibility and a super fun multiplayer, helps to make Battlefield 6 one of my favorites in this genre in a long time. Mafia: The Old Country. Original or new? No, but still well told, well acted, and a gorgeous 12-hour Mafia story that had me hooked from start to finish. Arc Raiders. Best extraction shooter I've played in a long time. It's a game that looks wonderful, plays well, and most importantly has one of the most helpful communities in a game. Sword of the Sea. A short yet unforgettable experience. Sword of the Sea is an absolute feast for the eyes and the ears, and one that shouldn't be missed. Elden Ring Night Rain. A much stronger multiplayer title than I was expecting. Elden Ring Night Rain was still tough, but still packed with the same gorgeous art design, stellar music, and badass boss battles, but this time with the help of other players. And finally, South of Midnight. Not an amazing game, but still offers a gorgeous art style, fun combat, and one of the best, most underrated soundtracks of this year. But here we go, my totally original Game of the Year of 2025.
We only need to incapacitate him.
We'll find a way to kill him.
Twenty 2025 was a very difficult year for me. The last 4 games, at one point or another, all took my top spot, seriously, and I was constantly arguing back and forth on what my game of the year would be in such a stacked year. Even right now, I'm still going back and forth on whether this is my game of the year or KCD 2. But sometimes, at the end of the day, the best pick is actually just the easiest one, the answer that is in your heart. Because while objectively, this game is not the best game I've played in 2025, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is still just my absolute favorite. Outside of the fact that the story behind this game and the people who made it is nothing short of wonderful, the game itself, similar to how I feel about DS2, does have lows, but not only are there so many highs in Clair Obscur, but so many of those high points are moments that are not only some of my favorites of this year, are moments that are just completely unforgettable. To the point that more than any other game this year, yes, even my precious KCD 2, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is the game I've thought about the most. It's the game that never left my mind since I played it all the way back in April. Not many games get me teary-eyed and emotional like Clair did in the first hours. Not many games have a soundtrack so good that I still actively listen to it in the car on my way to work. Not many games have a legitimately great turn-based combat system that made me seek out as many enemies as I could just to partake in it, especially with that oh so satisfying parry. And not many games left me as utterly speechless in the final hours, literally staring at a black screen as Clair Obscur did. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is the game that impressed me the most. It impressed me in so many ways throughout my playthrough. Whether it was its well-written and dark story that most of the time was a thrill from start to finish that touches on heavy themes of grief, life, death, sacrifice, and what it means to be alive, all told with phenomenally voice acted characters. Jennifer English to Ben Starr to Andy Serkis and literally all the side characters, everyone acting their ass off. The absolutely stellar presentation with gorgeous vistas and environments and art direction that just blows me away with the insane amount of imagination every time I see it. Or a soundtrack that, in my opinion, is a decade-defining soundtrack, right up there with FF Rebirth as one of the best soundtracks I've heard in years, probably one of the best soundtracks of this decade so far. And then you got the turn-based combat, genuinely fun, customizable, stylish, and built around a super satisfying parry system, making combat just a lot more interactive, and made it so that I just couldn't get enough of it. Now, with all that said, I'm still not saying that this game is flawless. It's not. I think there are objectively more polished, more refined games that came out in 2025. But more than any other game that came out this year, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is the game that lived in my mind rent-free. It's the game that left the biggest impact on me. It is the game that truly made me feel things that not many games are capable of doing. Not many games are truly able to stick to my brain and get me as emotional as Clair Obscur Expedition 33 did. And I just truly think that alone is an achievement in and of itself. It's thanks to its super fun turn-based combat, its emotional, well-acted story, and gorgeous presentation and soundtrack. Even in such a monumentally stacked year as this, I would still call Clair Obscur Expedition 33, at least for right now, my 2025 Game of the Year. And that was my top 10 games of 2025. Such a stellar freaking year. Between KCD2 and Clair Obscur Expedition 33, the competition was already stacked. But then you got Hollow Knight Silksong, Hades 2, Death Stranding 2, Split Fiction. God damn. Such an awesome year. But with this video done and dusted, I'm officially ready to move on to 2026. In 2026, it looks like it's going to be pretty good, even if GTA 6 gets, delayed. I think it will, but that's okay. I've got like a crap ton of other games I'm looking forward to other than that one, so it's all good over here. With all that said, my next video is going to be a why I'm buying on the first game in 2026 I'm genuinely interested in, called Code Vein 2. You probably know it, so expect that in the next coming weeks. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It helps a ton. If you want to stay up to date with what I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram. That's @TheGamerCritic. Be good people, and I will talk to all of you very soon. Okay, peace.